Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, senior Lakers insider, as well as lead Lakers content creator for Offside. Joined on this, it's not fine. It is pretty shitty, honestly, Tuesday night. Well, Wednesday morning, my time. I'm not joined by anybody quite yet, but in a little bit, I will be joined by Andy Kamenetzky, who will have a conversation with me about Rob Pelinka, which is pretty fitting, seeing as Lon Rosen spoke to the beat reporters before the game about Rob Pelinka's future with the organization. So look forward to that after I recap this game. A game that I think highlights everything currently wrong with this Lakers organization. So aside from that, phenomenal night here for those of us who root for the purple and gold. Quick reminder, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. Please turn on those notifications. If you guys are listening to the podcast in the morning via podcast, please subscribe, rate, review, all of those good things. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just jump on in, I guess, right? No other choice. So the final tonight was 110 to 109. And it was a game that over the course of it, the Lakers should have been in greater control of. I thought they were clearly the better team out there. I thought they had more than enough. They honestly, from a talent standpoint, they should have overwhelmed the Magic. The Magic didn't have their second best player in this game. Franz Wagner has been out for most of this season. The Magic didn't have their fourth or fifth best player, maybe even third or fourth or fifth best player in that range in Suggs. He was out tonight as well. He's their best perimeter defender. The Lakers honestly should have won this game going away, and yet when I was kind of prepping for my pre-cap and recording the pre-cap, I kind of landed on, I think the Lakers will win, but I don't think they're going to cover. And part of the reason that I didn't think that was going to be the case is just because, I don't believe in Luka, LeBron, and Austin anymore as a combination. I don't believe in JJ Redick as the head coach of this team while those three are there. I thought it was honestly pretty embarrassing that JJ would go. He ended the first half with the original starting five, that being Luka, Austin, Rui, LeBron, and Ayton. They didn't look good at the end of the first half, and then he went right back to it at the end of the game. And guess what, guys? Didn't look good. And it wound up, getting beaten down the stretch. The Lakers have, I think this is the first game all season that they have lost, where they entered the fourth quarter with a lead. And yeah, it's just like when I say it kind of highlighted everything that I don't like about the organization in its current state. I don't think LeBron and Luka and Austin have done enough together to make it work. I don't think the organization has done enough as a franchise to get those guys enough reps, right? This medical staff has been hyper aggressive in keeping these guys as healthy as they can possibly be for the playoffs. Well, it won't matter if those guys get to the playoffs and don't have any reps. They get out on the court together and they very clearly are like, is it your turn? Is it okay if I take shit? Look at that last possession. Luka's open for three on a play that was designed to get him open for three. And even he's like, do I shoot? Do I shoot here? Is it okay if I shoot here? And that's Luka Doncic, the guy who's leading the league in scoring, is reluctant to score when the play calls for him to score. Austin didn't score in the first half and barely got a few shots off. His role is greatly diminished when the three of them are together, and he's the team's second best player. LeBron doesn't look very comfortable, and he's being asked to do the little things on the court, but he's afraid to do the little things on the court because he's 42 years old or 41 years old or whatever it is. It's just, God, I don't know. I don't believe in this team anymore. I don't believe in leadership. You had Lon Rosen speaking before the game about how Magic Johnson is going to be around the team again. Great. The last time we heard about Magic Johnson being around the team in no official capacity as kind of a consultant was when Jim Buss was leading the team, and Magic eventually wrestled control away from him. And I'd be excited about somebody wrestling control away from Rob Pelinka if it was anybody but Magic Johnson. So it was just on display tonight. Everything that has kind of ailed the Lakers over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years or so, was put on display as they remain extremely insulated. They lose to an inferior opponent. Their head coach is saddled with a roster that doesn't make any sense and continues to be saddled as his career is trying to take off, leave the ground. He has been saddled with nothing but rosters that don't make any sense for the most part. The only time he had a roster that made any sense was right before the Luka Doncic trade, which all of us would obviously make all over again. But since the Luka Doncic trade, the roster hasn't made any sense. And we kept getting told about how, well, just wait, guys. Just wait. Next transaction window. Nope. Next transaction window. Nope. All right. For sure this time. For sure. Summer of 2026, it's happening. And meanwhile, it's all right, cool. So we're going to waste a couple of postseason trips with prime Luka Doncic, somebody who doesn't look like he is probably going to last very long in the league in his prime because he's not the best athlete and he isn't known for staying in the greatest of shapes. They're going to waste LeBron beating off and fending off Father Time in ways that we have never seen before. They have already basically wasted Austin Reeves's prime contract years, where next year he's probably going to be making 3, if not 3.5 times what he's making right now. And the Lakers are sitting here telling us, no, guys, be patient. Everything is okay. Based on what? It's after the trade deadline, we were told by way of leaks, no, the Lakers front office and people within the locker room, according to Dan Wojcicki, believed that the Lakers profile is a better playoff team than a regular season team. Based on what? It can't be based on their records against playoff teams. They get their asses kicked by those teams usually. Honestly, we should be patting the Lakers on the back by being close to a team above 500 tonight. What are we talking about here? What is this? What is this franchise? What does this franchise become? We just saw this franchise retire the statue of Pat Riley, one of the fiercest competitors in the history of the sport from a coaching aspect and from a front office aspect. And he's telling everybody about how much he hates the Celtics they picked Pat Riley Statue Day on Celtics Day so that Pat Riley can tell everybody how much he hates the Celtics because of his time as a Laker. And then the Lakers, the actual Lakers, go out and they lay a stinker against them. Why should any of us continue to believe in this franchise? Because of Mark Walter? All right, yeah, Mark Walter. We're talking about the revitalization of the Dodgers or of the Lakers franchise, but all of the people that we keep hearing about revitalizing the Lakers franchise are currently employed by the Dodgers. It's Andrew Friedman and Farhan Zaidi. I don't need those guys' input on the Lakers. I want their equivalent from the NBA working for the Lakers. I don't know, man. I probably overreacted to the Celtics loss the other night, but clearly I didn't. They followed it up with this loss, which was clearly a win that became a loss because this team can't be serious for any longer than 6 minutes at a time. You tell me what you guys think. You tell me about like where you guys find this team to be. What we're gonna do here is I'm gonna open up this conversation. I'm gonna bring in I'm gonna play the conversation that I had with Andy Kamenetzky from earlier today, where we talked about Rob Pelinka. And then and I'm trying to throw to it as early as possible so that after the conversation takes place, I can come back here and we can answer some of these super comments which are piling up. So yeah, we're gonna do that. I'm gonna try to pull this off as smoothly as I can, and here I go. All right, joined now by friend of the show, friend of me personally, even though I think we've met maybe once or twice in passing. So we got to start working on changing that. Yeah. But somebody who I really enjoy talking Lakers with and is super active in talking Lakers. He hosts Locked On Lakers with his brother Brian. He and his brother Brian have a lifelong rivalry for favorite Kamenetzky, which is a joke every single person who has either of them on makes. And then he also
you are breaking no new ground with that joke.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He also hosts a Lakers talk show on weekly on 710 ESPN, ESPNLA Radio, which is also really fun. Has a good assortment of guests on there. I've been on there in the past. It's a good time to pop on there and talk Lakers with him. Andy, how are you holding up, bud?
Doing all right, man. Just we were talking before the show, got back from the dentist. As you start, for some of your younger viewers and listeners out there, not to scare the bejesus out of you, but as you get older, seeing the dentist becomes a real adventure in fear. They will just scare you about your future for anything involving teeth for the rest of your life, and it just gets worse.
This might be a controversial opinion. So dentists who might be watching or listening right now, my apologies. But I've always felt like dentists have a lot in common with weather people, where like a weatherman is never going to, go viral for saying like, yeah, it's going to be nice. 72 degrees, a little breezy, nice, comfortable day. They're going to go viral for being like, heat wave incoming. It's the hottest day that's ever going to be. And it's like, with dentists, it's like I'm not going to remember to go to the dentist if he's like, yeah, you're doing all right. Could do this a little differently. Could do that a little differently. We could do this to sort you out this way. No, they're there to sell you a product, and they're going to tell you like, if you don't do this, you will lose half of your mouth, not your teeth, your mouth.
Yep.
And that's my experience.
Well, that's the stage of life I'm in right now. It's a lot of fun.
Today on the show, speaking of going viral or not going viral for takes about certain persona within the Lakers universe.
Takes with Andy a lot of bite, baby.
Andy and I are going to talk about Rob Pelinka. And now, just for full disclosure, as I've said earlier in the show that you guys are currently watching, I am recording this with Andy the afternoon before tonight's game against the Orlando Magic. So if I'm like, if I come off as overly optimistic or pessimistic, it's because we haven't seen the game yet. So now the reason, Andy, that I reached out to you initially to talk about Rob is because I find him to be an impossible person or GM or whatever to have like a nuanced conversation about without pissing somebody off, right? Because if I come to his defense in any way, shape, or form, given the season that the Lakers are kind of having, then I get, oh, you're just shilling for access type of criticisms. If I come down too hard on him, Lakers fans are going to say, well, what are you talking about? They're still on pace for 50 wins, and he's won a championship, and he's acquired Luka, and he's acquired LeBron and AD and all this stuff. And so, like, I'm going to try to navigate that territory with you here. What is your, like, overall kind of 5,000 foot elevation take on the job that Rob Pelinka has done to this point? Good luck. There's your grenade.
Well, actually, I'm going to drill down it even a little bit more specifically to the Twitter exchange that actually led to you to reach out about coming on, because a mutual friend of our shows, Daman Rangula, tweeted out, I guess this was almost a week ago, I continue to find myself in an odd place of not being fully on board with the level of anti-Pelinka sentiment. There's a justified accumulated fatigue of kicking the can for years now, but they have an opportunity to make this summer make real noise. And I responded in a series of tweets. I've talked a lot on recent shows about how I think Rob's can kicking has been the brass thinking LeBron AD had maxed out as a championship foundation, but also not having the stones to instead pivot. So they maintained a limbo state, stalling to avoid any real commitment. Whether you agree or disagree with their assessment of LeBron and AD, much less how they handled it, is a matter of opinion, but also irrelevant to what I'm talking about, which is an impetus for the decisions, even bad ones, and how they're handled. Context is always vital. Why is this important? And the context in particular that I was talking about is that I think things are in a different place for whatever decisions Rob will make moving forward. The context has radically changed. The team is now being built around Luka, a generational superstar in his prime. There's absolutely no logical reason not to be aggressively attempting to maximize that starting point. And two, Rob no longer answers to Genie. He answers to Mark Walter. And assuming he's the owner everyone presumes, Rob doesn't have the same leeway to spin inactivity with job security. As such, I think it's a mistake to automatically treat past actions as future indicators. Does this mean Rob will crush this summer or even is the right guy for the job? No, but that's not my argument anyway. I'm simply saying Rob has neither a reason nor the luxury to slickly sell same old, and if nothing else, I think is sharp enough to know this. And the reason I bring all this up is I think the discussion of what Rob has done to this point is obviously valid, if for no other reason than to evaluate where we are now. But I do think too many people use the past to predict the future without actually acknowledging how much different things are in terms of who Rob actually answers to now, and also the context that would dictate his decisions in the first place. And like I said before, I've thought for a few years that the front office transparently, and Genie included, transparently lost faith and lost confidence in LeBron and AD as a foundational duo. And you can agree or disagree with that assessment. You can say they bailed out too early, whatever. But I think that was a big reason for their can kicking. It's basically, we don't feel strong enough and confident enough to invest further, but we also don't know what to do with ourselves without superstars. And we don't know how to cosplay contention unless we have these people here. So we're basically just going to spin our wheels until something better comes along where LeBron decides to retire and we can stop giving him 1+1s at the max, which I think they would have done until LeBron was 50 years old if Mark Walter hadn't eventually bought the team and provided a backstop. I think as far as assessing Rob himself, I think he's not a details-oriented guy. I don't think he takes particularly detailed, full looks at roster building. I think he has certain types of players, whether you're talking skill set and ball handling, ball creation, scoring, or just gravitation towards stars, which fits with the Lakers ethos. And I think some of the more granular details can get lost on Rob. I think if nothing else, Rob needs more people around him just because the job's too big, even if you think Rob is the best, most underrated GM in the league. His shop is too small. That being said, though, I do think this offseason may produce a different version of Rob, if for no other reason than he's not going to have a choice, I think, but to be different. Unless he's hearing from up high, we want you to keep your powder dry. We don't like the options. But then at that point, that's as much a Mark Walter thing as it is a Rob Pelinka thing.
Yeah, I think obviously a lot to unpack there. And I would say that, like, starting with like the notion that, or the lack of faith in LeBron and AD, And then, even before they lost faith in LeBron and AD, it's always been, before that, it was like, well, LeBron and Clutch said this, and we're going to go do this.
Right.
And then now with like, because I think you make a sentient point there as far as like, well, if Mark Walter says to keep the powder dry, that's Mark Walter saying to keep the powder dry. And like those 3 points there, all I don't disagree with any of them, but all of them kind of go back to Rob being middle management.
Yeah.
And not really having like a basketball vision himself. And I think
I
don't
disagree with that. I do not disagree with that at all. I don't think he has a super clear aesthetic for how he would go about building teams other than find talent.
Yeah. And I thought that was brought into, pretty clear vision in that game against Boston, where I think Brad Stevens does have a type. I think Brad Stevens does have a culture or a basketball style that he wants to see the Celtics play. I think Sam Presti has a vision or style that he thinks the Thunder should be playing. And you look around at like the rest of the league and the teams that are atop the league, they tend to have that kind of overall macro vision where somebody on high is charting out a path to and finding ways to stay on that path one way or another. And I think, when we go through a few seasons now of spinning wheels, as you put it, that is, I think, a result of Rob not necessarily like Rob governing up or governing sideways or governing whichever way he possibly can to remain employed. And that is where I think, or maybe not even to remain employed, but remaining employed by governing up. And I think what the Lakers desperately need as soon as possible, and frankly, I would, given how critical this upcoming summer is, I would prefer it be put in place, before this summer. But what the Lakers need to figure out is they need to get somebody in that position who has an actual basketball identity, or Mark Walter needs to tell Rob, hey, what is your basketball vision? How do you want to see the Lakers play here? Stop governing up to me. I want you to make your own call here.
Well, I mean, some of this is a function of when Jeannie was the ultimate shot caller. By her own admission, she had very little to do with the basketball decisions. Like, I think she would basically sign off on whatever. And unless like the financials were becoming a thing, I think it was basically make your decisions, Rob. I'm going to sign off on them. And as much as Jerry Buss, was very wisely famous for letting Jerry West and Mitch Kupchak and even his son for a while do their thing, I do get the sense that Jerry was at least more involved as a sounding board for the basketball than Jeannie has been. It remains to be seen how much of a sounding board or direct involvement Mark Walter is going to have in all this. But I do think you raise a good point about the idea of pinning down from Rob, what is your vision? Like because this coming off season is going to have the most, as Rob would put it, optionality in building a roster from pretty close to the ground up around Luka. Like, it's not going to be perfect. You don't have infinite cap space. You don't have infinite assets to trade into your cap space. You don't have a lot of players that you would use beyond the picks to trade in your cap space. Like, it's not perfect, but you can't count on the world being perfect, particularly when you are a team that refuses to ever really, if not even fully rebuild, take a step or two backwards in order to take a step forwards. Like when you're talking about Boston or OKC,
he has
or
never
Detroit,
traded
or the
a player
Spurs.
for a pick.
Right. Well, like those teams,
only Thomas Bryant. Take that back.
Sure. But like teams like the Spurs, the Thunder, the Pistons, you mentioned the Celtics, like they have given themselves multiple paths because they are not always trying to be as ready now for a championship or as close as you can be to a championship, even if in reality you're not that close. Like, you're not really that close, but they never want to appear like they are doing anything other than competing for a championship, because the Lakers only compete for championships, which, to be honest, is bullshit. Like, that's not how the world actually works. And I think what fans really want to see is a clear path and a vision and a plan. Like, I do not expect Rob Pelinka, for example, to this offseason transform the Lakers to inner circle contenders, because I don't think that's realistic in one offseason. What I do think is realistic and frankly mandatory is that by the end of free agency, the end of summer, you have they're better, but B, you have a roster that makes more sense, and you can clearly see what's being built and what is being built towards. That's what I'm actually grading on. Like the wheel spinning we talked about earlier, I don't even think all wheel spinning is created equally. Like, the period in between trading for Luka and where we are now, I don't really blame them for not being super aggressive beyond that, because I don't think the roster merited it, and I don't think they really had true opportunities to get that much substantially better. And I did not want them to just make performative theatrical moves for the sake of jazz hands looking like we're doing something. I don't.
Isn't that
I think
Kennard?
I think Kennard's fine. I think Luke Kennard addresses a weakness on the team, which is shooting. He provides, he's a multifaceted shooting option. He can spot up, but he can also move off screens. Like, he's a more versatile, I think, shooting option than, say, Rui, who's much more of a stationary guy. I don't think it's impossible that Kennard could be re-upped this offseason. I doubt it's going to cost a lot to keep him, no matter who signs Luke Kennard this offseason. He's the type of player that you would want around Luka. You need shooters, among other things. So, but I consider it a modest-sized move that, again, it doesn't turn them into inner circle contenders, but I don't think there was a realistic path for that anyway. And I have no problem with them not trying to, again, basically message we're going all in, like, because we always have to go all in, because that's what I don't want that. I don't want them to mess up the opportunities that they have to really build around Luka the way they would want to, a generational superstar in his prime, capable of taking a team to the finals. They've not had a guy like that since Kobe. Like, this is a real opportunity for them. So I want them to leave all their options open. And in my opinion, there isn't much they could have done at the deadline that would have substantially moved the fortunes of this team. So I'm good with them making a relatively, I think, helpful, but relatively, in the grand scheme of things, more moderate, minor move. But this offseason, those bets are off. Like, there needs to be a tangible plan in place that you can see through the roster. Otherwise, Rob done F this thing up.
Well, and that is where I think Lakers fans find themselves, at least the ones in my chat and Discord and the people that I interact with in Twitter, like the frustration that I sense from those fans is, okay, we keep on talking about how important this upcoming summer is and how vital this and how critical this is to the Lakers, to Rob, to all this stuff, when I don't know that I can confidently say, all right, let's say Rob doesn't do everything that we are expecting him to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I can confidently say he is gone after an underwhelming summer. And that is, I think, like, having the comfort to be able to spin the wheels on the back end of the LeBron and AD era, and then also spin those wheels at the front end of the Luka era. And then if you don't pull off the everything that you need to in the summer, which was the reason for spinning the wheels over the last year and a half or so, like, if nothing comes of that, that leads to just outright apathy from the fan base. And I think that is where, because there is some speculation that I've heard from people who kind of know some stuff that Jeannie might have negotiated a 3 to 5 year window as part of the sale of the Lakers, and that's why she gets to stay on. And that is how, like,
3 to 5 window for
herself.
3 to 5 window for herself or for Rob?
For herself. And then, like,
okay,
she makes the decisions for 3 to 5 years. And, and I think so long as Jeannie is there, I think generally speaking, you can probably write Rob's name and pen there, probably. But I would have thought that about Tim Harris too, though. Like, I would have thought that So
I
don't
will
know.
believe
Like that accountability is the hang up that I sense that people are kind of nervous about. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, first of all, I need to see Mark Walters' reactions to what do or don't happen before I decide the accountability isn't there. And like I said before, with some of the wheel spinning, not all of it is spun equally or contextually created equally. When you hear about this summer being one of the most important off seasons in Lakers franchise history, or being incredibly pivotal,
like the last 3-4 years.
Right. Okay. Here's what I would say. And I don't know if this is going to be comforting. I don't know if this will be satisfying to Laker fans, but I don't think I'm necessarily wrong. I think this summer they actually mean it, as opposed to before when I think that they were doing a lot of spinning. Because like I said before, I do not think that they fully believed in LeBron and AD, but they did not have the stones to pivot out of it. So it was a self-induced state of limbo. They've only had Luka on the roster for a year, and they were not preparing for this at all. Like, to be fair to Rob, like in a realistic, I think, neutrally pragmatic way, it's a pretty damn big ask to say go from mid-season trade that completely flips how your roster has been built. And by the way, in trading Anthony Davis and Max Christie to get Luka, and no complaints, you traded two of the ideal pieces that you would put around Luka. Like, I don't think it's a realistic ask to expect everything to have been revamped within a year to all of a sudden they look like a more seriously, intelligently, like systematically built team around Luka. Like, to put this in perspective, when 2004, the Lakers broke up Kobe and Shaq, that whole team got dismantled, traded for Lamar Odom and Caron Butler, who eventually became Kwame, who eventually became Powell. It took 4 years between that and the first finals appearance. And that was with prime Kobe, who, all sincere respect to Luka, prime Kobe is better than prime Luka. And
I remember #Fire Mitch. It was a thing.
Yes. And they had Lamar Odom, who, damn good player. Lamar Odom was a really good player. That took 4 years to go from that dismantling, which is a pretty radical thing, just like what we're talking about trading for Luka, to 2008 first finals appearance. And then the next two finals appearances, they won titles. I'm not saying that Laker fans should set their watches for 4 years and that's the time frame to evaluate this. My point is just, in any realistic world, this takes a minute. And what I don't want them to do is make rash decisions that signal we are all in, even if they're not the right moves. Like Mark Williams, for example, the trade that they ultimately rescinded. There was a lot of reporting that one of the reasons they went after Mark Williams so quickly and aggressively, despite all of the red flags that have been there with Mark Williams's health and injury past, and what they saw under the hood when they did the physicals. And I would love to know exactly what that was. But there was a lot of reporting that they did that in part to impress Luka and to really show Luka, who had an extension coming up, we are all in, buddy. This is the way we treat our stars. Like, you want a center? Damn it, we're going to go get you a center. And the fallout from that affected Dalton Connect. Like, Dalton has not been the same, whether you want to talk about him as a player or also a potential trade asset since then. And had they maybe not have been as eager to show off to, at the very least, Luka, what they were looking to do, they might be in a better place with Dalton, and they would be in no worse of a place with a center. So that's sort of what I'm getting at in terms of, I don't want them to just make aggressive moves for the sake of being performative or messaging or whatever. I want the moves to make sense. But that, by the way, that does not mean complacency either, or limitless window, or give Rob another extension on top of another extension to make sure he has ample time to do all this. Like, clock's ticking, buddy. Like, it is a brand new context now.
Yeah, the Williams thing is always gonna go down. Like, it's gonna be one of those things like 12, 15 years from now that, like, from time to time is gonna be brought up and we're gonna chuckle about it.
I can't wait for that oral history or 30 for 30.
Because yeah, like Lakers people will say, look, we found, and I can't divulge what additionally they found, but they'll say, on top of the knee stuff, there was some other stuff, in his back, and there was some other stuff here, there's some other stuff there. And it was like, we could not, even given we were trying to impress Luka, we could not, we had to go to him. We had to say, hey, we cannot make this trade. We can't acquire this guy. And he has missed some time this year, in Phoenix. And there was a time that he wasn't playing back-to-backs. And so now I think he's been healthier than I think even the Lakers would have predicted he would be this year. But overall, just like with the Dorian Finney-Smith thing, right? Where I reported that, they had kind of spoken to Houston and said yeah, we're a little nervous about his ankle. And turns out they were right to be nervous about his ankle, right? He's not played at all this year. So
Rob got that one right. Thus far, he actually got that one right.
Yeah. And I think what it comes down to is that in and of itself kind of lends itself to this conversation, right? That I can be frustrated that the Lakers are now entering 2 straight postseasons without a viable starting center with Luka Doncic, when that is probably the most important position that you need to fill on a Luka team.
Mm-hmm.
I can be frustrated at the fact that you always need as many two-way wings, and Dorian was great with the Lakers last year, and yet it was now objectively the right choice to let him walk. And it sucks to hear it. Lakers fans aren't going to want to hear it, and they definitely don't want to hear it in the moment, but that's how it kind of played out to be. And that's where Rob is such a perfect lightning rod for these conversations about the way that the Lakers are run. It honestly kind of reminds me of Lonzo Ball back in the day, where your take about Lonzo Ball told me a lot about how you think about basketball,
or Magic.
And I think, what's that?
Or Magic, how you feel about Magic, because Lonzo was so transparently a Magic pick. That is the one of the kids that I think, most of the kids, to be perfectly honest, I think the internally were viewed as, who are we eventually going to flip these kids for? And they were never truly invested in them, I think, as players. And in a lot of ways, I think to their detriment early on. Lonzo was the one exception. Magic was invested in Lonzo.
Yeah. He spoke at his press conference. He talked about Lonzo's number being up there next to his one day and all that stuff. And
I was there.
But the Williams thing and all this stuff, and that's where you made the point about, spinning wheels now, not necessarily being the same as spinning the wheels at the end of the LeBron AD era. And there is just so much irony at play when one of the ways that the Lakers kind of spun their wheels at the end of the LeBron AD era was Anthony Davis consistently asking the Lakers, "Hey, can you go out and get us another center? Is that okay?"
You know what? I will defend the front office on that. I actually will. I think.
It did lead
they were
to,
right.
Had they gotten that center, you probably don't start postseasons against Minnesota's giant front court with Jackson Hayes as starting center.
I guess the flip, I guess, but you don't know that you're going to have Luka Doncic at that point. And the type of center that AD wanted wasn't just like Dwight Howard on a minimum or JaVale on a minimum. He wanted them to invest real resources into a center, which is frankly stupid, because Anthony Davis is an elite center and a fine but not great power forward. And it's funny, actually. Do you remember after the Luka trade, Jeannie did an interview, and I don't remember with who, but she said something to the effect of AD was complaining about his role. And then I think she realized that she made it sound like AD complained his way out of LA, which, to be clear, I do not think is what happened.
No.
He's now in Washington, but was in Dallas because they were offered Luka Doncic, and Luka's better than AD in 6 years.
And Nico
younger.
had a weird thing for AD. He really wanted AD.
Yes, he did. So that is why. But in that moment, I think Jeannie revealed, and not without reason, concerns internally that the guy that is supposed to be taking the mantle from LeBron, our next franchise face, he wants things that don't make sense. And because he wants things that don't make sense,
he doesn't know what position he plays.
Well, no, he knows what position he plays. He hates it. And, to quote Don Draper, that's what the money's for. Like, I mean, really, truly, you are elite at this thing. You are not elite at the other thing. Like, we need you to do this. Like, it makes no sense to allocate this much extra money towards putting in a center that will not be as good as you. And I think there were internal concerns that the guy that they were looking to make the next face, to make their next franchise face, was not going to be happy. And that's a problem. And I just want to establish, we'll keep talking, but just establish now, because I know how conversations about the front office go, and the things that I've said that have not included prosecute Rob Pelinka for war crimes. It's going to be interpreted as carrying water for the front office. If you are asking me, do I fully trust Rob Pelinka to be able to pull off this offseason? The answer is no. If you're asking me, do I think the Lakers should, at minimum, be exploring somebody else other than Rob, or mandatory need to be putting more people around Rob? The answer is absolutely. But what I do think is important is, just because Rob is not the best president of basketball ops, GM, whatever the title is this year, like, just because he is not the best at that doesn't mean every decision that he's made has been bad, or that every decision that didn't go well was completely unjustified. Like, sometimes things just don't work, and sometimes you make bad decisions. Like, there can be both. But just because I don't think he is the best in the biz, and I think the Lakers should at the very least explore the idea of finding somebody else, that doesn't mean that every decision is bad. And I think that can get lost. I mean, Sam Presti, I think, is hands down the best GM in the league. He's made mistakes. Like, there's been mistakes under his watch. Like, Jerry West.
James Harden didn't retire in Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, and look, you can even go back on that one. And, James Harden won James Harden. Then people forget that it wasn't a big two at that point. It was actually KD, Harden, and Serge Ibaka. And Serge Ibaka was a really, really good young player, like one of the best defensive players in the league. Like, but the point is, all of these guys have misses. My larger problem with Rob isn't even the misses. It's, and you talked about this before, and I think you're spot on. He's been on this job now for close to a decade. And if you asked me, define his vision for a team, I would say, I guess, a lot of ball handling, creating, scoring guards. Like, I guess, I don't know. Like, I don't actually know what it is. The one championship team that he helped build was in part architected when Magic was truly the ultimate shot caller in basketball ops, and also wasn't his first choice. And certain things ended up happening that Rob wasn't necessarily planning on. Like, kudos to him for taking that flyer on Dwight Howard when I think nobody else truly in the league was going to.
I was against the move.
But that wasn't his first choice. His first choice was DeMarcus Cousins, who got injured before the season even began. Like, Danny Green, Rob deserves credit for keeping in his hip pocket during the conversations and the long drawn out affair with Kawhi. But that was super specific to Danny Green also waiting on Kawhi. Like, if Danny Green had played for any other team but the Raptors, that option isn't there. So, like, there are a lot of very specific things happen that Rob should get credit for. Like, it's under his watch. It's like being president. Like, the bad and good shit that happens all ends up under your watch. So Rob deserves credit for that, but it doesn't give me a clear indication of vision either.
That is, I think, this is what we'll kind of end on as we kind of embark on the final 20 some odd games that the Lakers have to wrap up this season. And, I'm not all the way to like sim to end of season, but I'm nearing that point. Like, that, the closest I ever got to that was after that Celtics loss. It was like, all right, I'm done with these guys. But
you're like Pacino in The Godfather 3. Just when you think you're out, they pull you back in.
Yeah. It's more that my contract with Odyssey pulls me back in.
True.
But like, but like when we're looking ahead to like what is at stake this summer and all of this stuff, it and I talked about this actually with Daman in an offside video where Rob kind of talked about the undertaking of revitalizing the Lakers organization, building it back up, hiring a whole bunch of people and all of these things, but him still being at the helm of that. And that makes me really nervous because I don't know what kind of people, given that I don't know what his basketball vision is, I think I do have a pretty good grasp for what his corporate vision is. When he was an agent, he ran incredibly tight ships. That was a really small agency that had monster clients. And a lot of agents kind of marvel at the fact that he was able to navigate those things. Since he's shown up to the Lakers, they've only gotten thinner as far as the circles go. And so now it's like, now Rob is going to be in the same summer building out a roster that we hope is at least on track to be a championship contender, building out the rotation behind the starters that he needs to acquire, and also building out the Lakers organization. And all of this, while I'm not necessarily sure what this dude actually stands for from a basketball standpoint, that is where, like, when you speak it out loud, because I was explaining this to Jen the other night, and she was like, how did he get all that? What happened? Like, how did we arrive here? And that's the part that I'm kind of like, I haven't really fully vocalized it on the pod or even on Twitter yet.
I've heard you vocalize it plenty. I've heard you vocalize it. Don't sell yourself short. I've heard you vocalize it.
It is a daily show. I forget a lot of the things that I say. But like when you hear all of that, like all of the undertakings that Rob is at the middle of, and you're already not all that confident about his ability to pull off what he needs to do from a roster standpoint, but also the building out of the organization. How do you think that immovable object and unstoppable force are going to meet?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's immovable anymore because he doesn't have the same autonomy. He's not answering to the same person. And there's no indication that Mark Walter, based on the way he's run the Dodgers or reporting that's come out for what it's worth, Ramona Shelburne was on Lakers Talk with me Monday night. Ramona knows the inner workings of the Lakers front office as well as anybody out there. And she said there's already been a few hirings, like nobody that they've announced, nobody that I think at this point they plan on announcing, but people involved. I don't think Rob will have the autonomy or the ability to do this stuff unilaterally. Like, is he going to have a say in the people that get put in a front office around him? I imagine he'll have some degree of say. Like if it is going to be his front office with him at the top, then it makes no sense for him to have zero say, because then you start setting up a front office and a dynamic that's hostile. And then nobody gets anywhere with that. Like these people have to be able to work together. But what you're talking about in terms of being able to keep that circle small, and I think in some ways manipulate the circle into remaining small, I don't think he's going to have that luxury anymore. Like whenever I hear people talk about Rob Pelinka has never operated this way and he may chafe at the idea of doing it, I'm like, well, then he's not long for this ride. Like I am pretty confident that if Rob is not willing to be flexible along these lines, and maybe he'll find a way to little finger his way through that as well. But assuming Mark Walter is the owner that everybody thinks that he is, I don't think Rob's going to have that luxury anymore. And if you want to take a glass half full version of this, maybe that brings out the best version of Rob. Like maybe Rob with more sounding boards around him, more people to actually incept certain elements of ideas and perspectives. Like I think it's extremely important that they bring in different people who have no connection to this franchise at all. Like people that need directions getting to El Segundo. Like I think it's really
like Lon Rosen. No, wait, hold on.
Well, okay. Lon though.
No, I know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, I know. Because I think Lon, I think, is in a vacuum, a very sensible, logical, predictable, and good hire. Like Lon makes perfect sense.
He's in the business ops too. Yeah. He's not a basketball person.
he makes sense for what you're going to ask. But you are that same thought went to my head as well. Like,
who'd they hire?
I have zero issues with Lon as a hire. Like, truly, I don't. I think he is very qualified. He's frankly a Mark Walter hire. He's not a Genie hire. He's a Mark Walter hire. They have a long pre-established relationship. He has, by all accounts, done very well with the Dodgers. Lon Rosen, though, does remind me of the outside voices and perspectives that I still want, but I have no problem with Lon. Again, with the contextual differences of moving forward versus how we got here, I just feel like Rob's goals, I would hope, are going to be much different, not just because he's answering to a different boss, but because you've got Luka Doncic in his prime and a reasonably blank slate to build around. Like, if you're not willing to commit to that, what's the point of even having this job? So I think that context matters a lot, like the differences. And again, I don't think they meant it before when they were talking about, next offseason, next trade cycle, next offseason, next trade. I think it was transparent can kicking because they didn't believe anymore in LeBron and AD. But I think now they're in a place where if Rob doesn't believe, A, I don't know why he has this job. B, I have a sense he will not have the job for very long, regardless of why he's keeping it.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is, I agree that comparing what Rob did at the end of the AD LeBron era to the beginning of the Luka era, like that is a apples to, I would say, pears, not quite oranges, but pears conversation. But what I do think is a fair comparison is what Mark Walter did at the beginning of his ownership of the Dodgers and comparing that to what we're hoping to see at the beginning of his ownership of the Lakers. And what he did there with the Dodgers was he worked with Ned Colletti. He kept a close eye on what Ned Colletti was doing, and then eventually arrived at the conclusion of, like, actually, Andrew Friedman's sitting right over there, and he's kept the Tampa Bay Rays competitive in the division with the Yankees and the Red Sox. If we bring that mind over here, I think we're better off. And I think, and no offense to Ned Colletti and all that stuff, he's still on Spectrum Sports in LA, and I've bumped into him a time or two. Nice dude, all that stuff.
I covered.
Andrew Friedman was objectively the better move.
Yes, honestly, I covered those teams. Like I for the LA Times, I actually covered those Dodger teams with Ned Colletti in charge. Actually, Ned was not a bad GM at all. I think Ned was, pretty good, especially when you take into account the McCourt of it all that handcuffed a lot of his decisions. Yes. Like I can tell you from conversations that I had with Ned on and off the record, without getting into specifics, there are decisions that he made that were the best ones he could within the parameters of, you can only spend this much, you can't give up these assets, work with that. Like, but I think Andrew Friedman is, I think if you ask Ned Colletti, Ned would probably say, while he'd say he would love a crack at being able to do this in the Mark Walter era, Andrew Friedman is better. And that's fine. That doesn't make Ned bad. Like, that doesn't make Ned bad at his job.
Yeah. And I think here with Rob, this offseason, and I think the trade deadline afterward, I think those are, at that point, he will have had 4 transaction windows in the Luka era. Mm-hmm. And if the Lakers aren't well on their way to contention after that, or like a big chunk of the way to that contention, then I do think that Mark Walter, who, by the way, is on the record saying he thinks he might have waited a little too long on replacing Ned Colletti. If Mark Walter decides that is the direction that the Lakers need to go in, then that is the direction that the Lakers need to go in. And I wouldn't exactly, be all that bummed about it.
The last thing I would say on that, and I want to make it clear, this is not sourced anything. This is just me thinking about, again, context. And last thought on this. When Mark Walter bought the Dodgers, his group bought the Dodgers, to the best of my knowledge and recollection, that was basically his initial dip into the professional sports industry and owning teams. And I would imagine there was a lot Mark Walter was smart enough to realize, I don't know, and I need to learn things, and I don't want to make big decisions before I learn things, like, like say, see Ishbia Matt, like those type of rash decisions the minute you buy your team, or like Tillman Fertitta made a lot of decisions that he had to eventually have his people unwind. And I think Mark Walter likely realized, I need to let this simmer a bit, learn some things, then make decisions. That was also 15 years ago. There's a lot that Mark Walter has learned about since then. He also, I think, was much more informed with the inner workings of the Lakers because he had been a minority owner with right of first refusal if the Buss family ever sold. So I'm guessing he had been paying a lot of attention and has already formed some opinions anyway. Meaning, I'm not predicting that Rob is going to be out this summer or anything like that. It wouldn't surprise me. I would just say this. It would not surprise me if bigger changes happened quicker with the Lakers, if Mark Walter wants to make big changes, simply because he knows this business better and is likely more confident in making quicker decisions.
Yep. Agreed. Andy, this has been a blast. I looked up and we were at 45 minutes, and that usually is a sign of a good conversation. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed and checking out the Locked On Lakers pod, my old gig, and then make sure you guys are listening to Lakers Talk, which is weekly on 710 ESPNLA Radio. Always a blast talking to you, bud. Hope to keep these things up here as we wrap up the season and try not to sim to win.
Now, we'll do it again, and at some point, we're going to have you on in your old house, too.
Perfect. All right, so we will go back to we got, over the course of that conversation, a ton of super comments, which means I get to play this first. All right, so first and foremost, I'm going to slide up here, and holy cow, we have a lot. So first, Justin Tyndall writes, and I'm going to kind of rapid fire through these because we have Harrison and me talking about this tomorrow, and I'm tired, but let's go ahead and dive on into these. So Justin Tyndall kicks us off with, JJ is Ham 2.0. Actually made me laugh that Marcus was going to check in, but Rui hits a 3 and JJ says, nope. LD close to 100 Laker games with no improvement. LD. Oh, Luka. Well, on the Luka front, like, he's at the part of his career where you kind of are who you are. Now, what I will say about the JJ thing was, like, it was so predictable. Like, when he ended the first half with this lineup, red flags and bangs and whistles started going off in my head. It was like, don't do it. Don't do it. And then, we were like, they leaked a couple of points, but it wasn't brutal. I think this is the lineup that JJ Redick legitimately believes in the most. And which is really weird because this guy is supposedly this analytical basketball mind. He's this guy who is a facts over feelings guy and all this stuff, chat, GPT, Riley, all that. And yet for some reason, he just will not quit this lineup. And so when they ended the first half with it, I thought to myself, there's no way, right? And then the sub patterns was kind of breaking in that way. And then, like you're saying, Justin, Rui hit that 3 as Marcus was walking to the scores table. And I was like, no way, they're going to do this, huh? And lo and behold, a lot of the same problems that has ailed this lineup all year kicked right back up, and they wind up losing the game. So great. Fantastic. I saw a comment. I'm going to go ahead and delete you because you don't get to talk about my wife. All right, so we're going to go back up here. Justin's. All right, so Intel's a wild. Fuck Boston. Agreed. Justin Tyndall, Peyton Pritchard shot 2 of 13 tonight, 0 of 5 from 3. Well, it helped that he wasn't guarded by Austin. I kid. Or do I? But no, like, here's my thing. And it goes back to the culture thing that kind of has bothered me all season, but especially in that game against the Celtics there. All of those Celtics seem to understand the assignment. They all seem to understand that, like, this is the Lakers. We are going to hand check. We're going to pick up full court. We're going to drive on these people. We're going to push off. We're going to, push in the back on offensive rebounds. We're going to set illegal screens. We're going to do all of these things. And we're going to do those things because we know that the Lakers are going to bitch and whine and moan their way out of this game. And most importantly, we're going to do those things because we, as the Boston Celtics, care about this rivalry. And they, as a group of mercenaries, do not care about this deal. And it was very apparent there. So, like, Peyton Pritchard showing up for that game, given that he was drafted by the Celtics and given that he's been developed by the Celtics and given that he's won a championship with the Celtics, him caring about that game and elevating his game to that moment doesn't exactly surprise me. But, like, as far as, his performances, like, Jaylen Brown didn't even play tonight. So, yeah, like, the Celtics understood the assignment. The Lakers didn't. Let's see. Intel, I don't trust this team anymore. Paul QT2 okay. How long is Pelinka's leash until he is let go? That's the giant question here, isn't it? It's like, how long should his leash have been to even allow him to get to this point? And this is kind of the crux of the conversation that Annie and I had, because for the vast majority of teams out there, a GM or a president of basketball operations winning a championship, landing LeBron. Well, I'm not going to give him any credit for LeBron because LeBron specifically said he wanted to go to the Lakers. And if there was anybody that LeBron wanted to work with, it was Magic. It was not Rob Pelinka. So we're going to set LeBron off to the side. But Rob did resuscitate those trade negotiations with the New Orleans Pelicans after Magic Johnson took a blowtorch to those deals. So he brings in Anthony Davis. He tries to acquire Kawhi Leonard. Does not acquire Kawhi Leonard. Builds a roster in that one offseason, wins a championship. So far he's acquired one superstar, won a championship. Then a few years later, he acquires Luka Doncic heading into his prime for a shop at Ross kind of price. So for the vast majority of fan bases, the vast majority of organizations out there, you would say that's enough. That guy's a made man. Like, think of how thrilled the Sacramento Kings would be with that 5-year stretch. Thing is, the Lakers market themselves as exceptional. They market themselves as, we are not the Kings. We are not the Hawks. We are not the vast majority of the only team that we consider a rival of ours is the Boston Celtics. And the reason that we consider them a rival is because they have one more championship than the Lakers do. You can get into like championship trophy, counting debates and stuff like that. That I don't care about that. But to me, it was like, it's just you don't get to say you're exceptional. And then when you're questioned about like not holding your front office to exceptional standards, you bristle at the questions. And that's what they do all the time. Whenever I ask people like, hey, why does this guy just like get chance after chance after chance after chance? Like, why are we still here doing this? The constant response is, well, I mean, look over there. And it's like, okay. But since 2020, so they win a championship in 2020, you get the 1 year there. We know where this season is probably heading. So in the 7 seasons, including the 1920 season to the end of this one, where we're probably heading towards another first round exit, we'll see, but probably. That would mean that you won the one championship, you made a Western Conference Finals, and in the other years other than that, you were either booted in the first round or you didn't make the playoffs altogether. And you did all of that. You were booted in more seasons than not. You either didn't make it to the second round of the playoffs because you were booted in the first round, or because you didn't make the playoffs at all, while you had some combination, not one of, but some combination of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Luka Doncic. And so, like, yeah, the highs, great. That's great. Congrats. The lows, well below Lakers standards, well below Lakers fan standards. And the Lakers not understanding that when I broach the subject is kind of sort of the problem. Let's go. Intel again. Get rid of Braun, Reaves, Rui Laravia, Bronny Jr., Vando, Dalton, and Kleba, etc. Sick of this trash. And then, you follow that up with, I want a new GM and Rob gone this summer, plus the Bus family exit. Kurt and Linda gone too. New thinking in there. So as far as the roster goes, and I've seen a lot of like, Intel again, please get rid of Rob and Jeannie. Let's see. There was another one here that I'm missing. Yeah. So Intel again, we need 5 to 6 guys gone this season. So like on that front, I agree. Like, they do need to basically like wipe the slate clean, try to enter next season with a pretty much rebuilt roster. And that appears to be the plan. Like if they go into next season with anything close to this current roster, I think at that point, Lakers leadership, meaning Jeannie's boss now, Mark Walter, he would then have a reason to be like, sorry guys, since I've been here, you acquired Luka, lost in the first round, had a off season and a trade deadline to address some of the issues that led to you being booted in the first round. Didn't do that, probably lost in the first round again. And then in the following summer, didn't do enough to improve your roster there. And I think at that point, given the amount of pressure that would be placed on the Lakers, given the amount of pressure that would be placed on like from a fan base that can get really loud. Here's how loud the Lakers fan base can get. Do you guys remember back when Sportsnet, Spectrum Sportsnet was first a thing, how they had a legitimate, there was going to be a blackout situation with DirecTV. And there were so many Lakers fans throughout the Southland, throughout California, that eventually there was enough pressure placed on DirecTV because people were canceling their DirecTV subscriptions and going to Spectrum to get the Lakers channel, that DirecTV bowed to that pressure. So we know that when the Lakers fan base gets angry, and I'm not talking about like that ridiculous protest that was outside Staples Center. No, we're talking about the Lakers just raised prices again, right? There are some people who I've seen, saying how their ticket prices were up like 100% plus heading into next season. And the Lakers even released a statement because of the amount of noise that was coming from raising their prices. And they were talking about, from a straight business standpoint, it's the right decision to make. So we know that this new ownership can hear Lakers fan base when they get upset. We know that when this Lakers fan base gets super upset, that it can make even the staunchest companies kind of bow down to some of that pressure. And so, like, if this offseason doesn't go the way that we think it should, meaning you have Luka Doncic in his prime and you don't go into next season having filled 3 legitimate starting holes after letting LeBron walk, probably, at that point, Lakers fan base gets riled up enough. I think at that point, the new ownership, Mark Walter, somebody who, again, as I said to Andy Kamenetzky, is on the record saying, yeah, probably took a little too long in getting his people in there. And like, by his people, he means like Stan Kasten. He doesn't mean Jeannie Buss sitting there as long, I don't think he considers Jeannie Buss his people. He means his people, the best people that he can put into positions of power within the Lakers. Like, he waited a little too long on Ned Coletti, and I don't think he wants to make that mistake again here on Rob Pelinka. And so Rob is going to have to replace 5 to 6 guys. He's going to have to build a legitimate championship contender next year. And if not, then we're looking at overhaul, which unfortunately means potentially another wasted season. Really quickly, before I get back into the questions and the supers, that last point, potentially wasting a season because you empowered Rob for this upcoming offseason. Again, as I said to Andy at the end of that conversation there, Rob is tasked with potentially, if LeBron isn't a Laker next year, you have to fill 3 starting spots. Oops, shoot. Didn't mean to do that. It's come on, back up. That is way too close on his face. I do not have a face for that kind of deal. But all right, so the Lakers would have to replace 3 starting spots. They would have to fill out their bench. I still think they need to revamp the coaching staff. Rob Pelinka is talking about leading the charge on filling out and modernizing the organization. All of that is going to fall on the shoulders of a guy who none of us is actually all that confident that he can pull any of that off. That doesn't scare anybody. Like, it's crazy how many times I haven't spoken to a single person who's like, yeah, Rob's got this. Nobody. And it's like, all right, if nobody is confident that Rob has this, then why is this the plan? Why is this how you're introducing yourself to the Lakers fan base? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's see. We'll go back up here and Justin Tyndall, 4737. Pelinka's GM since 2015, VP since 2020. What's he done? Braun was always come here. Braun brought AD, did nothing to get Luka. What's he done in almost a decade? It's like I said a second ago. Like, even if we don't go that far, right? Because I do think Rob deserves some credit for some of those things, especially the AD one, because those 2 organizations, like, it took Dell Demps getting fired and it took Magic Johnson getting fired to get the Lakers and the Pelicans actually having conversations again. Those initial trade negotiations were a disaster. I had somebody in my mentions earlier today saying how, like, Magic deserves credit for Anthony Davis. Abso-fucking-lutely not. And Magic Johnson doesn't deserve any credit for anything that took place while he was there. He was never there. So, like, but like, I think Rob, in the interest of fairness, does deserve some credit for the, Anthony Davis eventually becoming a Laker. Although I will grant that Clutch played a huge part in AD's interest in becoming a Laker in the first place. So it's some combination thereof, but I do think that Rob deserves some credit there. Now, as far as like everything that has taken place since, I think Rob deserves some credit for keeping the trade talks with the Mavericks as quiet as they were, because if any word had gotten out that Luka Doncic was on the market, the Mavericks could have possibly heard what else was potentially on the table from some of these other teams. And Luka isn't a Laker right now. So, like, I think Rob deserves some credit for that. Outside of that, though, spinning the tires the way that he did at the end of the LeBron AD era and the impact that had on the beginning of the Luka era, and continuing to spin those tires, in the transaction window since, and now heading into a second postseason with a roster that nobody actually believes in, unless like it all basically comes down to this upcoming summer. And as I said a second ago, not a single person I've spoken to is like, yep, Rob's got this. So it's just the math isn't mathing in my head. And so like I completely understand where fans are coming from, and frankly share the opinion that, like, how does anybody think this is like all of this is a good idea? I see people like complaining about my eyes. Here's the thing. One, it is 1:46 in the morning, my time. Two, as I'm talking here, I have to keep an eye on the live chat to make sure that nobody is saying anything too out of hand. Three, I'm monitoring over here the comments coming out of the game, because apparently Luka was he and LeBron are talking about the miscommunication on the last play, which is certainly interesting. I also have ADD, so occasionally I am going to kind of look around the room as I'm talking, because I'm not very comfortable just staring this way the whole time. But like, this is a weird complaint to have this late into a show. But all right, the next question I have here is from Intel. In your guys' opinion, what do we have to do to change next season? I want an identity going forward. Actually, I think Andy and I hit on this quite a bit, especially at the opening of that conversation. Look, culture is set from on high, right? Like, think of religion. You pray up, right? Like all religions pray to a higher power, and that higher power in some way, shape, or another, sends out how like everybody in that religion is supposed to act, and that culture falls from there, right? And to me, this is where Mark Walter plays a role in this. But very importantly, I think this is where Rob Pelinka plays an important role in this. The culture is set up here. What style of basketball is it that Rob Pelinka believes in? And like if Rob doesn't have any North Star from a basketball standpoint, then nobody has any North Star from a basketball standpoint. Like, this is like, honestly, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here, because I think this is an important point. Karuka's teeth, right? Like, you say 2013, and I don't know if you mean this on purpose, but 2013 is when Dr. Buss got sick and was no longer kind of the central figure who set the culture and set the expectations with the Lakers. Ever since then, it's been like, what would daddy think here? It's never been like, ever since Dr. Buss died, or ever since Dr. Buss first got sick, it's been like, what would dad want here? Or what would this, and who would want this? And it's never been with the people who have been running the organization. It hasn't been, what do I believe in? What do I, Jim Buss, believe in? What do I, Jeannie Buss, believe in? it's always been because of the nepotism, like, and this is how nepotism ends dynasties. The kids start behaving on behalf of the parental figure and not through their own vision. And now sometimes their own vision is also flawed, which also cripples dynasties. But in this case, the Lakers are so, like, I saw somebody making the point earlier in the chat about how, like, get somebody there who doesn't pray at the altar of Kobe. Look, I love Kobe as much as the next person, but the number of times that, like, how much some prospect loves Kobe seems to matter to these people as part of, like, the legitimate draft process drives me nuts. The fact that, like, the bonuses that were dealt out were 8 and 24 out of respect to Kobe's numbers, like, move on. What do you believe in? Rob Pelinka, what do you believe in? Do you believe in a heliocentric offense? Do you believe in switching defenses? Do you believe in zone? Do you believe? What is it that you, Rob Pelinka, from a basketball standpoint, believe in? Until we arrive or get any clarity on that front, we're just going to sit here and watch underperforming rosters, because the only thing that he actually seems to believe in is, like, give me stars. Give me stars. It doesn't matter. Like, just give me stars. And acquiring stars or the pursuit of stars is the clearest path to his continued employment. But, like, once you get those stars, because you don't actually have a vision for how that system should play out while you have those stars, it just means that, like, nobody seems to understand what you're actually trying to accomplish. So here we stand. I'm going to go back to the questions. Oh, man. Whew, man, we have a lot of them. We will go back to haven't felt, this is from Detective Bluto Mind Pretzel 23. Haven't felt great after a Laker game since November. Don't see the Lakers winning a playoff game. Can't wait for Rob to draft another combo guard in the draft. That last one got me. Hey, look, like, what type of player did Rob acquire at the deadline? Luke Kennard, like a 6'3", 6'4" shooting guard with a little handle bucket, and Kobe Buffkin, combo guard. So, all right, I apologize. Everything I just said in the last segment was a lie. We know what Rob believes in, and it's those, like, Mexican or Filipino, like 5'7" and under leagues playing on, like, a 9-foot rim. Like, that's the type of basketball Rob Pelinka wants to pull up and watch at all times. Let's see. We will go. Let's see. Actually, I think this next one. All right, Justin with a good comment here. Don't blame Rob. I blame Jeannie. How can an agent be able to identify basketball talent? Jeannie just wanted to give jobs to friends over running the Lakers. Yeah, like, that goes back to the comment about, the Lakers being kind of rudderless since 2013. Like, here's a conversation I've had with Lakers sources a few times over. And it's that, and especially people who, like, leave the organization. And what they all say is, at the upper level, talking Jeannie and her group of friends, what matters to Jeannie a lot more, and actually, and I don't know if it was on or off, I'm not going to go there. But, like, what I hear from people who work for the Lakers and then eventually leave the Lakers is, like, what matters a lot more to Jeannie and to Linda and to Kurt and previously to Tim, and then Rob just kind of, like, folds himself into this culture because, again, his job is to remain employed. But, like, what Jeannie values above all else is kumbaya, right? Like, let's all agree. Let's all, like, the people that Jeannie Buss eventually kicks out of the organization, right? And then, shits on after the fact. Jerry West, Jesse and Joey, um, Jerry's son, Ryan West, sorry, Frank Vogel, who disagreed adamantly with the decision to keep to keep Talon over Alex Caruso and to trade for Russell Westbrook. Like, all of like all of the people that, like, departed the organization or have departed the organization in one way or another, they have tended to be the people who are like, hey, I don't think this is a very good idea. And speaking up, and making that known. Even Pete, right? Pete has talked about the times where he's been like, Pete no longer there. So, like, it's just when the edict from on high is, hey, we're all just here to get along. I'm sorry, you're not going to be very productive. Friction is important. Without friction, you don't get fire, right? Like, without pressure, you don't get diamonds. I always go back to, over the course of my career, the Harrison, who you guys see on the show every week, he and I built Silver Screen and Roll together. He and I built Locked On Lakers together. And it wasn't always great. Like, it was like he and I butted heads plenty. Ask him about Google Docs, like, and my disdain for them. He and I had constant battles over, like, headlining and SEO and those stuff. And there were moments where he was right. There were moments where I was right. But, like, at the end of the day, those conversations, while they were at times contentious, while we didn't always disagree, they were always with a purpose. Our goal was to build Silver Screen and Roll. Our goal was to build Locked On Lakers. Our goal was to build out our careers together. And you arrive at, however long he and I have been friends together now, about 11, 12, maybe 13 years now. He has climbed real high in the SB Nation box world. For whatever reason, I continue to chart a path and navigate it the way that I have. And like, those times that he and I argued, and like, it was knockdown dragouts occasionally. And yet, like, I still love that dude like a brother. And I think that he would probably say the same thing. So this, when I hear about how the Lakers are run, it kind of frustrates me, because it's like, if you can't have a disagreement, and not have some productive conversation as a result of that disagreement, then you're not an adult. You're just a fail son or a fail daughter. And guess what? We have been here a long time. All right. That is, we got, all right. So Paul QT 2OK, who is your number one GM target if Pelinka is let go? Well, it has to be Sam Presti. I mean, like, think of everything that in a year where they are on their way to potentially winning a second straight championship, Stan Presti was able to fleece the 76ers of Jared McCain because the Sixers wanted to deduct the tax. And now, like, they just add another young, exciting 6'4" guy who fits in with all of the things that they are looking for. And you could make an argument that at the deadline, the Sixers probably improved almost as much as anybody. So, like, Presti is about as good as it gets. Now, as far as, like, so I have a follow up here. Okay, what about a GM that is currently available? A GM that is currently available. Oh, well, I mean, look, Bob Myers showed interest in working for the Lakers once upon a time. After Magic stepped aside, Masai Ujiri also showed interest in working for the Lakers back then. Either of those guys would be fine. Hell, both of them. Like, this is the thing that the Dodgers did. Now, one, they hired a guy who was not on the market technically at that point. They hired Andrew Friedman away from the Tampa Bay Rays, but they hired Friedman and they hired Farhan Zaidi and they hired Alex Anthopoulos. And there's always another dude who I always forget. And my apologies to that dude. But they basically filled out this like front office, like this Avengers front office. And that was the group of people who went out and hired Dave Roberts and filled out Dave Roberts' staff, built out the rest of the organization around the Dodgers, right? Meaning the minor leagues and the international leagues and their scouting departments and their player development departments and all that stuff. Like, all of those guys oversaw all of those efforts. Alex Anthopoulos eventually goes to the Braves. Farhan Zaidi wasn't very good, honestly, with the Giants. He's now back with the Dodgers. So, like, to me, if we're just going apples to apples here, you hire Sam Presti, you hire Masai Ujiri, you hire Bob Myers, you get all of those guys to work together. Eventually, they all succeed to the level where they all, Bob Myers and Masai Ujiri go off and get jobs again. And you move on that way. Like, that's what I would do. And frankly, that's what the Dodgers did back when Mark Walter and Stan Kasten, came to the understanding of like, all right, if we're going to do this, we're going to fucking do this. So please, fucking do this. Whew. Still going strong. Apologies to Miles's occupational therapist tomorrow. I am tie-tie. All right. 1 hour and 32 minutes in. I am calling it a night. Thank you, everybody, for your questions, for your comments. Please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. Thank you to Andy Kamenetzky for recording that conversation earlier today. I actually think it aged quite well. And then tomorrow, Harrison and I are going to be right back here in the lounge. So make sure you guys are subscribed. I believe that will go at noon Pacific. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin. Have a great rest of your nights. Make somebody else's. I am getting some sleep. Have a good one, everybody.